students, welcome to CH EdgeMakers, and we are here for you with our latest NMAT analysis. NMAT exams have started today and I am Venuka Goyal. I have gone and taken this test, taken feedback from students, and I have a lot of experience in competitive exams. I took JEE many years ago, I took GRE many years ago, did very well, studied from IIT, studied from universities abroad, and now I teach quantitative aptitude and logical reasoning at CH EdgeMakers, and I am here to make your NMAT journey much smoother. So the first thing that I would like to start with is that NMAT exam is different from CAT exam that many of the students take in many ways. So you have to be very careful. Many times people tell you NMAT is easier than CAT, right? So people become relaxed, but don't underestimate this exam. It is different. The content might be, subject material might be like slightly easier than CAT, but it is different and you need to know the format and what to expect. So first of all, NMAT exam is an adaptive exam. Because of that, there are few things you need to be careful about. Every question you attempt, every question you see, you have to attempt and then move forward to the next question. It is a computer-based test. There will be a question in front of you. You have to attempt that question. Without attempting that question, you will not be allowed to move forward. And once you have attempted the question, you cannot come back to the same question. So you should be sure about what you are doing at that very point. So this makes the exam tricky because in CAT, the situation is very different. So please pay attention, right? And this is some very important information. Now to start from the beginning, NMAT exam has 36 questions of QA, right? 36 questions of VA, the English part, and 36 questions of LR, which is logical reasoning. But the sequence is not predetermined. When you go to the exam center and you sit for taking your exam, there will be a lot of information which will be shown to you, and during these initial 10 minutes, you will make one very important decision. And that decision is which of these three sections are you going to attempt first, and which one will you attempt second, and which one will you attempt third. The sequence you can decide on your own based on what you find easy. Now personally I teach QA, so I am comfortable with QA. I prefer to take QA first, right? But some other people might be more comfortable with some other sections. So be aware that this is something you are going to have to decide, and you should decide beforehand that this is what I am going to do. QA section is for 52 minutes, VA section is going to be for 28 minutes, and the logical reasoning section, LR section, is going to be for 40 minutes. So the timing is different for each section, but the total number of questions in each section is the same, 36 questions each. So in QA you will do 36 questions in 52 minutes. Another important thing about the QA section is that there is different kinds of questions that we expect. Within QA, you can think about algebra, arithmetic, modern maths, etc. So this year, based on whatever we have seen in the first day of exam, we have seen that about 10 to 12 questions of arithmetic were seen in QA, about 8 questions of algebra, there were 1 to 2 questions of logarithms, there were about 6 questions of probability and permutation and combinations, right? Apart from that, the QA section can also have data interpretation sets. This is typical for NMAT, and this year also we have been told and we have seen that there are 2 sets of data interpretation that were shown in the QA section, and each data interpretation set had 4 questions. Right, so in data interpretation, there were bar graphs, etc. Right, typical type of questions, but 4 questions each. So this was the overall distribution of the questions in the QA section. One thing that I believe you should be careful about while attempting the QA section is that there are certain difficult questions that might pop up in between, which may take more time. From my own personal experience, I can say that while taking my mock exams, I saw that I was getting stuck at some of the more difficult questions. It was taking more time, and because of that I could not attempt all the 36 questions. So today the strategy that I kind of adopted and I would suggest is that in QA you should try to, if you find some difficult question, very difficult question in between which you think is going to take maybe like 5 minutes for you to solve, it is better to skip that one question, because most probably after that question it will be followed by a few easier ones, and then you will have a better chance of completing all the 36 questions. But don't overutilize this suggestion, right? Try to use all of your 52 minutes, because once you go forward from one question to the next, you cannot come back. If you cannot leave a question. If you are leaving a question, it just means that you are just guessing, right? Without solving, just guess some answer and move forward. But be aware that there will be few difficult questions which it might be advisable for you to just skip, but not more than a few. That depends on your proficiency level, right? So that is as far as QA is concerned. I personally did my VA section after QA. The VA section is a bit shorter time period, 28 minutes, but the number of questions is still 36. The good thing is we don't need to do calculations in VA, so there are many questions in which you can be faster. In VA, there were 3 reading comprehension type questions, and these were not in any specific order. Like, you know, those 3 RCs popped up somewhere in between of these 36 questions. So you should be aware. We don't know. We don't know if the first question will be an RC or not. We don't know if the last question will be an RC or not, right? Apart from that, there were 4 para-jumble type questions, and there were 5 questions in which you have to know the word meaning and be able to relate the questions, right? So these were the different types of questions. In a VA, what I would like to say is that reading comprehension takes time, and after reading that one paragraph, you should be able to answer the 4 questions that follow it, right? So be careful about whether you are attempting all the 3 RCs or not. For me personally, given the very tight time schedule, I could attempt only 2 RCs out of 3, and I still ended up getting a good score in VA, right? So you have to be smart about utilizing your time. In VA, there were many questions that were fill in the blank type of questions, where you were given statements in which the blanks have to be filled with different types of words. So you should know word meanings, you should know grammar, you should know how to use prepositions, and these words, only then will you be able to choose the correct answer, right? So vocabulary is important, grammar is important, reading comprehension is very important, and be smart about managing your time, right? I personally did the logical reasoning section in the very end, because I feel like the logical reasoning section is a good mix of VA and QA. That's why I did it, but it is up to the students. They can choose whatever sequence, you can choose whatever sequence you like. In the logical reasoning section, there was one set which was a bit about mathematical reasoning. Right, there are some numbers which have to greater than, less than, whatever. So there was a mathematical reasoning type of question set which had 4 questions. Then there were a few more questions which had input-output type of questions, which are typical for NMAT, where you are given certain inputs and told that these are step 1, step 2, step 3 outputs of this, and then based on that you have to decide, you know, if there is some other input, what would have been the output. So those types of 2 sets were there in the logical reasoning section. Apart from that, the logical reasoning section had 2 questions that were based on set theory, right? So you should revise your formulae for set theory, what happens when there are 3 parameters, things overlap, and one of the questions was also a bit tricky, right? This is something that I noted both in LR section and also in QA section, that in some of the questions, they were not difficult per se, but sometimes when the numbers are replaced by ABC, you know, variables, it can get confusing for students to understand what is going on, right? So they have made some of the questions tricky, both in QA for profit and loss and in LR for the set theory type of questions. I noticed that rather than saying 45% or, you know, giving you numbers, they have said this is A and this is C and this is X. So don't be scared if something like this happens. Just calm down, take a few deep breaths, and you know, it's the same question. Just because they are saying A instead of 100 doesn't mean that you don't know this, okay? So these were some sort of tricky things that you need to be aware of as far as the LR section and the QA sections in NMAT is concerned, right? So this was a brief overview of what to expect from NMAT experience this year. Apart from that, there are certain standard things that go without saying, but I'm going to say them again. Make sure you have your original ID proof, whatever you have entered in your application. Today itself, I saw one student being sent back home because he got photocopy instead of original. So be very careful. You will lose your 1 day of exam. You will lose your exam fee. Make sure you take the original of whatever document you have entered. Your name should match. Your name should match, and reach the exam center well before time, right? You don't want that added stress. Apart from that, what is very, very important is that all the experience of this exam, I thought that the difficulty level and the overall experience was similar to the mock exam that was posted online. So when you register for NMAT, the GMAT interface, it gives you one free mock exam. So I thought that for me, it was a very good experience to take that mock exam beforehand, so that we know, right? We know what kind of format and difficulty level, you press next. The whole exam experience, I would say, was similar. Taking that mock exam was very, very useful for me, especially making your exam strategy and what to expect. It really helps calm your nerves if you have some idea what to expect, right? So those of you who have your upcoming NMAT exams, I know NMAT dates are going to be in November, in December. So whenever you're planning to take NMAT, prepare well, take mock exams. The free mock exam on GMAT is a good place to start with. And if you need further prep material, CH EdgeMakers is here. We have many mock exams. Please, contact us, and all the best for your NMAT prep. Do well.